In this video, we will discuss scripted actions that can be used in the Nerdio Manager for WVD. And specifically, we will focus on Azure Runbook scripted actions that have become available in Nerdio Manager starting with version 2.8 and newer. So just a quick recap of scripted actions. Scripted actions are, as the name implies, scripts that can be written either by Nerdio. There's some scripts that are included out of the box, but also can be customized and created by you, the administrator. And then these actions could be applied to be executed at various stages of the automation of Nerdio Manager for WVD. For example, you can apply an action when a session host VM is being created. You can apply an action when it's being shut down or removed. You can apply an action on a schedule, and you can apply an action to desktop pools, to desktop images, or really many other places in the product where you can apply various customizations that have been created as scripted actions. There are two types of scripted actions. One is Windows scripts. Windows scripts are, as the name implies, Windows scripts that run inside of a Windows virtual machine. These are PowerShell scripts that are executed inside of the operating system in the context of the local system account using the Azure Windows agent and using the Azure custom script extension. The Windows scripts and how they work has been covered extensively in a previous video, so I'm not going to spend any time on it in this video, but I do want to talk about a new type of scripted action called Azure Runbooks. Azure Runbooks, as again the name implies, are Azure automation account runbooks, which are also PowerShell scripts, except that they run outside of an operating system. They run directly in your Azure environment through an Azure automation account that is created and managed by the Nerdio Manager application in the security context of the Nerdio Manager service principle. So basically the application's context. So let's look at how runbooks work. So the first thing we'll need to do is we'll need to go under settings and we'll go into Nerdio environment and we will see a tile called Azure Runbooks Scripted Actions. And if you've just installed Nerdio Manager 2.8 or newer, by default, this will be disabled. And once you click this disable button, it will allow you to turn it on. When you turn it on, it will let you select an Azure region where an automation account will be created specifically to run these runbooks. If you ever choose to disable scripted actions, it was going to give you a warning that the automation account will be deleted when you disable this feature. So that automation account that was created specifically for this purpose is going to have this name of NMW, Nerdio Manager for WVD, -app-runbooks with a unique suffix here. And this account will be used purely to run these Azure Runbooks that we're going to look at in more detail. So that's all you need to do to enable it. Once you do, you will notice that the scripted actions menu will have a submenu called Azure Runbooks. And inside of Azure Runbooks, there's going to be some scripts that Nerdio provides to you as an example or as useful actions. You can take these scripts and you can modify them any way you see fit. You can obviously add your own. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of these scripts. So for example, let's look at this one called Enable Anti-Malware Extension, which is a script that installs the native Azure IaaS antivirus extension on Azure VM. And by looking at this extension, we can obviously apply the same principles to installing any extension to our VMs via the Azure API. So let's go ahead and click on it, and you can see the script, and you see there is some context that's being set, and the process basically installs the extension, which is right here, basically sets the extension on the VM that is configured up here. A couple of important things to note. The first thing is to understand the context within which this script will run. So this script is going to be an AZ PowerShell set of commands. So you can use anything that's available in the latest version of AZ PowerShell module, and will be executed via Azure Runbook in the context of the Nerdio Manager's apps service principle. So anything that the Nerdio Manager has access to can be manipulated by this script. In addition to understanding the context, there's also going to be some variables that will be available in this side of the script that you can leverage. For instance, if you're running the script, you will be able to know what the subscription ID is, the resource group name, that the VM you're running this in context of is located in, the region, the VM name. If you're using the pass AD credentials parameter, you'll also have the AD username and password. And if you're dealing with personal host pools, you'll even know the desktop user who happens to be assigned to a particular VM. You will also see the host pool ID and the host pool name for WVD ARM, and for WVD Classic, you'll get the tenant group name, and tenant host pool name. So you get a very rich context of variables that can be consumed inside of your script, so that you can have it do exactly what it is that it needs to do. So let's take a look. When we add a new scripted action, there is something called script execution mode. And there's two types of execution modes. There's something called combined and individual. In the combined mode, if you have multiple scripted actions that have combined mode execution mode set here, what's going to happen is a single runbook will run all of these commands in one pass. So it will be one execution of one runbook that's going to combine all of these commands into one, which is obviously going to save some time. However, certain actions must run individually. Maybe the VM needs to be restarted as part of the run, or there may be some other reasons why it needs to run standalone in its own Azure Runbook job, in which case you will select individual, and then any scripts that are run with individual execution mode will be run by themselves in their own job of an Azure Runbook. Now, once you create these scripts, and you can see there's some example ones here, the malware we already looked at. There's one that enables VM operating system disk encryption on session hosts, and there's one that assigns public IP addresses to session host VMs. Let's take a look at how we would apply and leverage this enable VM OS disk encryption in real life. So let's go to a workspace. And let's take our marketing workspace as an example. We're going to go down to the drop-down action menu. We're going to select properties, and we are going to choose VM deployment. On the VM deployment screen, we have a couple of options here to run scripted actions at the end of VM deployment. If we choose run at the end VM deployment, then we have a drop-down where we can select our scripted actions. If I want to enable encryption, there it is. I have enable VM OS disk encryption running as an individual runbook. So right there. And then once I click OK, this runbook is going to be executed whenever a new VM is added into the marketing host pool. And if we look inside of this runbook, we'll notice, or inside of the script, it's going to be converted to a runbook. You can see exactly what it does. This basically sees if there is an existing key vault. If not, it creates it, and it basically executes the commands necessary to encrypt the local OS disk of any newly created session host VMs. Again, the possibilities here are pretty limitless. You can have this do really anything you can imagine in Azure. It could assign network security groups. It can enable firewalls. It can, it can install extensions, as we talked about. Lots and lots of possibilities of what you can do outside of the VM, which is what Azure Runbooks are for, as well as inside of the VM. So if you wanted to apply the latest Windows updates, or you wanted to install like a Zoom client or install Microsoft Teams, you would do that with a Windows script applied in a very similar way as we just saw a few minutes ago on the marketing host pool. So I hope you found this overview of scripted actions Azure Runbooks useful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in future videos.